Now to a special discussion. India's greenhouse emissions rate dropped by 33% in 14 years, according to reports. This drop is faster than expected and is down to a rise in renewable energy generation and forest cover. This is reportedly in the latest assessment made for submission to the United Nations. This means we are well on our way to meeting the Paris commitment to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC, to reduce emissions intensity by 45% from the 2005 level to 2030. So to understand this, we are joined by climate change expert Mr. Nagaraj Adve, who's an author of Global Warming in India, Science, Impacts and Politics. Thanks very much, Mr. Nagaraj, for joining us on the broadcast. My first question to you, would you call this an impressive reduction on emissions? And what all measures would you credit this to?
So I think it is certainly reasonably impressive in the sense that this reduction in 33% is probably a little faster than one may have anticipated a few years ago. Let me just explain that. So basically, it pertains to a sort of reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions. That is to say, it pertains to not just carbon dioxide, but all greenhouse gases. And also pertains not just to the electricity power sector, but also to all sectors of the Indian economy. And it is relative to our GDP. So it's not an absolute drop, but it's relative to our size of the economy as we sort of go forward. It's a relative reduction. It is certainly partly impressive. Having said that, okay, so why is it happening? Mainly for 2 or 3 reasons. One, there's been a fairly impressive expansion of India's solar power capacity. And so we are reaching roughly about 70,000 megawatts currently. There's also been, over a longer period, an improvement in India's energy efficiency. So if you take, for instance, more energy efficient fridges, these kind of 5-star fridges, you've got more energy efficient bulbs, you've got industrial processes that are becoming more efficient as India modernizes. So a range of energy efficiency measures have been implemented pretty well. So it's a combination of these factors which contributes. But I would say that we could do more. This 33% only pertains to the first commitment, mind you, the commitment that you were just talking about to the United Nations. There are 4 key commitments, and this is only pertains to the first one. The second one is that India would have half its non-fossil fuel capacity from non-fossil fuel sources, and we are currently at about 44%. Third, that we would increase our carbon sinks by about 2.5 to 3 billion tons by 2030. And there's a fourth measure which was introduced as a new measure in our updated commitment, which pertains to basically lifestyle changes, what's called life. So one needs to go through each of them. So we are busy talking about this 33% pertains to the first measure. And why I'm saying it's partial is because I think we could do better in some of the other measures. And I could tell you how that's the case.
And I want to pick on that point, Mr. Nagaraj, that there's a lot more that's still left to do. And on that point that you pointed out, that this is the first commitment that we made. We also have another target for the year 2030 that we want to shift to our total energy consumption. 50% of that should come from renewable energy, from renewable sources. That's our 2030 target. And currently what I'm looking at is that we're currently at around 35-40%, according to what various estimates suggest. So do you think we're well on track to reach that 50% stage by 2030?
So actually, if I may correct you, we're currently not at 35, we're at 43.6%. I looked at the latest data from the Central Electricity Authority, and non-fossil fuels, so this includes not just solar and wind, but also includes large hydro, small hydro, nuclear, etc. So we're actually at 43.6%. What this suggests is that actually a higher target is possible. We can very easily achieve more than 50% by 2030. That's one. Secondly, I think that we should be talking of actual generation and not of capacity, which is, let's understand the difference. So actual generation tends to be lower than capacity, but it actually reflects our electricity consumption and use. So I think our NDC pledge should talk about probably about actual capacity, or probably certainly also actual capacity. And thirdly, this new updated NDC has made it conditional. It's condition of technology transfer and financial assistance from developed countries. And I feel we are in a reasonably good fiscal shape. And it's not a 1991 moment, right? We have the resources, I think, to enable the transition from our own resources. Where I do think that we should demand from industrialized countries is loss and damage, but that's another conversation.
Right. Thanks very much, Mr. Nagaraj, for joining us. Of course, as you've mentioned, there's a lot more to discuss here, but we're short on time. But the point made well here that while we are on track to achieve that 50% target by 2030, there's still a lot that needs to be.
Before you turn me off, which is that this energy transition should be a just transition, because there are millions of workers working in the coal mines and the coal factories and transport, etc., who are going to be affected by this transition. So you need to be years ahead to cushion the impacts upon them. And that requires an entire longer conversation.
Right. Yeah. Those factors, of course, need to be looked at. We can't just look at energy transition in isolation. The impact of that needs to be looked at as well, as Mr. Nagaraj pointed out. Thanks very much for joining us.